Okay, I'm here with Ronit Glaser, who is from Magen David Adom in Israel, a very important role, and Sidney Benizri, the National Executive Director of Canadian Magen David Adom in Israel. Sidney, tell us, you brought a special guest to Montreal. How did this happen to bring Ronit here?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mike, for the interview this morning. And for us, it was important, to pass the message and to be able to meet with different groups here in Montreal and to hear directly from medic, from Magen David Adom in Israel, what happened on October 7. I think this is very important to connect with the community. And we have Ronit arrived in Montreal 2 days ago, and since then we have all kind of different meetings with young professionals, with members, donors from the community, with schools, and trying to reach out to the whole community and to connect also with the community. Even with students, we're going to have meetings also, seniors with the men's club. And this is very important for us to showcase, and to share the story. And what's better, of having medics, from Magen David Adom coming especially from Israel to share the story of October 7.
So Ronit, welcome to Montreal. I wish you were here under different circumstances, but tell us, what do you do for Magen David Adom?
I mainly work in the dispatch center. I'm a dispatch officer for Magen David Adom in the Jerusalem region. I'm a trained EMT. I've been with Magen David Adom since '95 and working there since 2001. And I answer the 101 calls, which is the equivalent for 911, but just for the ambulance in Israel. And I also send out the ambulances.
So tell us, bring us back to October 7th. What was your day like?
October 7th, I was asleep at home with my girls in Jerusalem. I got a phone call from a friend of mine saying, "You better wake up, the country is burning." And I didn't understand what he said because I was still half asleep, but it's a good thing that he woke me up because 5 minutes later, there was a siren, a red alert siren in Jerusalem, and I woke up my daughters and took them to our kind of safe room, which isn't really safe. They were both crying and scared, and I got a WhatsApp message from my supervisor, which is something that doesn't usually happen on Shabbat or Chag because she's religious, saying, "Everyone come in." And I just, without even thinking, picked up the phone and said, "I'm bringing my daughters, is that okay?" And she said, "Of course." So we got into the car as fast as possible and drove less than 10 minutes to the Jerusalem station. And on the way, we had to lie down on the ground 3 times because there were red alert sirens, the girls lying on the ground, and me putting my hands on their heads to keep them safe. And my 9-year-old said to me, "But Ima, who will cover your head?" And it was just the sweetest thing. We got to the station. Luckily, our dispatch center is underground. It's in a bomb shelter, 3 floors underground. So I knew that my girls would be safe. They stayed in the kitchen next to the dispatch center, and I went in telling them, "I'll be out soon." They know the drill. And they said, "Yeah, it's okay. We have the iPad. Everything's okay." I went into the dispatch center, and as I was going in, people said to me, "Be prepared. It's nothing you've ever dealt with before." Now, I thought, well, I've dealt with everything. I've dealt with mass terrorist attacks. I've dealt with friends, family members being injured, killed. I mean, it's okay, fine. It's nothing I've ever dealt with. As soon as I went in and I saw the chaos in there, I started thinking maybe I was wrong. And before I even managed to start answering calls, there was another red alert siren in Jerusalem. So I went on the loudspeaker for the station and calling everyone down to the bomb shelter, not realizing while I was doing it that I was bringing the war to my daughters at 9 o'clock in the morning. So they straight away knew everything that was going on because people talk. I didn't expect for them to stay quiet.
Right.
So I called the people down a few times, knowing what it was doing to my daughters, but remembering that they're physically safe, and started answering calls. I was there for 13 hours that day, answering calls, and I guess I have a very good defense mechanism because I remember only 10 calls from the whole day. But those 10 calls are strong enough to remember and to want to pass them forward, to tell people about them. One of my first calls was from a paramedic, Amit, from Be'eri, from the kibbutz. She called and she said, "Hi, it's Amit from Be'eri. I'm still in the clinic. When are you coming?" I had no idea what was going on so far. I mean, it was really one of the first calls. No one had time to tell us what's going on, what we can do, what we can't do. So I asked her to tell me what's going on there while I looked over what the computer says about what she already told us. And she said, I still have some injured patients in different levels of severity. And when are you coming? And I asked her to look out the window to tell me what she sees. And she said that she sees terrorists running all around, shooting all over the place. I said, do you see bodies? She said, yeah, there are bodies lying all over the place. So when are you coming? And I turned to my supervisor and I asked her, and I said to her, I have a paramedic on the line in Be'eri with people who are injured. When are we going to be there? What do I tell her? And what she answered me, and I turned back to Amit and said to her was, I'm so sorry. You're in the middle of a war zone. I don't know when we'll get there. We know that you're there. Continue doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job. We will get there as soon as we can, but I don't know when that will be. And her voice completely changed and said, I understand. Thank you. And she hung up. A few hours later, I got another call from her. Same thing. Hi, it's Amit from Be'eri. What's going on? When will you be here? And I asked her again about her patients, and she said that all the severities have gotten worse, but they're in there together. In the middle of her telling me this, one of the patients said, that's it, I'm leaving. I started hearing him shout at her that he's leaving the clinic, and she just apologized to me. And she said, excuse me just for a minute. And she turned to him and very calm and assertively said to him, you are not going anywhere. We are in this together. If you leave the clinic, you will be killed. You have to stay here with us, and we will get through this together. And she turned back to me and she said, I'm sorry, so what were you saying? When will you be here?
Oh, bye.
And I told her, Amit, it was amazing to hear. She's so inspiring to me. She was so amazing, so calm and collected and thinking about everyone else and just doing everything possible to save them. I told her, Amit, you're amazing. And you're right, you're in it together and you stay there together and we will get there as soon as possible, but unfortunately, there is still no one on their way to you. And she answered again, I understand, thank you, and hung up. Turns out that earlier that morning, the first call that she called around 7, she reached a different dispatch center in the main command of Magen David Adom, and they tried to call the ambulance driver while she was talking to them to get him to come from Be'eri, have him come to the clinic to help her, and he didn't answer, and they didn't understand why. It turns out that he was already murdered, and the ambulance was destroyed. So no one could reach her, and all of the different army corps that tried to get into Be'eri were all murdered. It was a big massacre there. And turns out that in the end, the terrorists did manage to get into the clinic. There were 2 men standing at the entrance, and they ran out of ammo. And the terrorists managed to get in there. They shot her first in the leg, and the way we know that is that she tied a tourniquet. She was found with a tourniquet on her leg.
My.
And then they shot her in the head.
Oh, no.
And she was killed. She was killed with her medical gloves on her hands
while
still treating patients, and they booby-trapped the whole clinic so that whoever comes in will also get killed.
Oh my gosh.
And that's just one of the few stories from that day.
That must haunt you.
It does. It does, but on the other hand, I really try to find the good in stuff, so I'm trying to really think of how inspiring she was and how what I really, really hope for myself is to manage to continue saving lives or at least helping lives in a way that keeps the lives in front of me the most important thing, in a way that I will manage to keep my calm, to stay collected, and to be there for my patients.
Right. And Sidney, it's stories like this and bringing Ronit here to Montreal to talk to people, it just shows the really important role that Magen David Adom plays in Israel and the role that you play in making sure they have enough ambulances to be on the road.
Exactly, absolutely, and this is why it was important for us, to bring Ronit here in Montreal, and just like you said, to show what happened there and how the organization is vital in Israel, and how we need to support this organization, because this is this is the national EMS organization in Israel, and this is like the second organization just after the army. And the day of October 7, and even after that, till now also, on a daily basis, our medics, paramedics, they're in the zone war, if I can say, in all the cities there, in the south, in the north, and making sure that they can, they can respond to the calls. And thanks to the generosity of our of our donors, the Jewish community here, were standing, for Israel and responding to the calls.
Terrific. Well, Ronit, congratulations on the job you do. Thank you for coming to share your story.
Thank you very much.
Great having you here.